these massive barrels will eventually be filled with thousands of liters of wine. But it's not just so winemakers can age more at once. Luxury wine producers, making some of the most expensive wine in the world, say these specific barrels, called foudres, impact the taste of their product, which is why they're willing to pay up to $50,000 for a single barrel. It's not only the size that impacts the taste. The real star is the wood, specifically French oak.
The French oak is the best of the world.
French oak is a heavily inspected and regulated resource, used only for the most precious projects, like repairing Notre Dame Cathedral. In fact, if the French government thinks a cooperage didn't bid enough for the wood, it reserves the right to block the sale. So do these massive barrels really impact the taste of wine? And why are foudres so expensive? While both American oak and French oak can be used to make a foudre, French oak is considered far superior, which explains why it's more than twice the cost. For one, it has a finer grain, with rings less than 2 millimeters apart. The slower the tree grows, the tighter the grain. France's limestone-based soil and cooler temperatures contribute to this slow process. This quality allows for a more gradual and controlled release of the oak compounds, or tannins, into the wine. Tannins create the subtle bitter flavor and texture you experience in a glass of dry wine, or when you bite into the rind of a fruit. Dominique Moreau of Foudrerie François comes from a family of wine connoisseurs, so he knows what wood makes a good wine.
Je suis également originaire du Val-de-Loire et fils de vignerons. Mes parents étaient viticulteurs, donc j'ai baigné dans les vignes et dans le monde du vin depuis.
Today, he's inspecting French oak wood from his supplier Godelat.
On peut voir que le fil semble relativement droit. Le grain est relativement serré, de l'ordre de 2-3 mm, donc c'est une belle pièce, une belle qualité de foudrerie pour nous.
This wood has already been dried for about 4 years. Once Dominique signs off, it will be transferred and stored outside the cooperage for a few more weeks before it's ready to be used. Wilfried is the gatekeeper, choosing which wood will be used for the base and keeping the most attractive pieces for the main body of the barrel.
C'est là où on place les morceaux de bois où il faut vraiment sur les gros contenants. Là, je sélectionne vraiment la crème de la crème.
In the end, only 20% of any given French oak tree will be deemed suitable to be part of a foudre. The discarded pieces will be used elsewhere, like fueling the fires for the toasting. The boards Wilfried has chosen are placed one at a time in this machine, which cuts and angles the sides and edges to various specifications based on the size of the barrel. This allows the boards to form a tube when they're arranged vertically. They're held together with cables to maintain their shape, while the entire barrel is steamed for several hours under a tarp to soften it.
Donc c'est toute cette phase d'étuve qui va se dérouler pendant la nuit, où un programme automatique va venir progressivement serrer, et à mesure que le contenant se chauffe, serrer le contenant de façon à plier les bois sans les casser.
After the heat treatment, the cable is removed and the coopers take turns hammering on large metal hoops to replace them and maintain the barrel's shape. They may also need to adjust the boards to make sure they're properly aligned and smooth.
Des fois, faut taper par dedans, des fois par dehors. Ça, après, c'est au feeling. Une fois qu'on est dessus, on le sent.
The amount of rings depends on the size of the foudre.
Le principe de la chauffe, c'est d'une part de marier les joints, de figer la forme du contenant, de les mouler, et ensuite de développer le potentiel aromatique et tannique du contenant qui va entrer en contact avec le vin par la suite.
But why use such a large barrel to age wine? First, it means the winemakers will need fewer barrels. But most importantly, it means the wine touches the surface area of the barrel less often. So the flavor the barrel adds to the wine is more subtle. These large foudres also minimize oxygen levels. While some oxygen is necessary for aging, too much can flatten the wine.
Certains cépages qui sont utilisés par les vignerons sont plus sensibles à l'oxygène que d'autres. Et donc, ramené au litre de vin, le foudre va apporter moins de micro-oxygénation qu'une barrique. On va beaucoup moins boiser ce vin. Et donc, on va être beaucoup plus respectueux du fruit originel, du raisin et du vin qui est élaboré.
Foudrerie François makes a number of different sized foudres, from 1,000 to 50,000 liters. It also makes egg or ovoid shapes, which are designed to help circulate the dead yeast cells and other sediment during fermentation. Such large barrels need to be moved with forklifts and accessed using ladders and scaffolding. The next step is toasting, in which kilns are lowered into the open barrels. They're monitored closely because the barrel could blister or blacken at this stage, meaning all the work to build the massive foudre could go to waste.
Alors on peut sentir l'odeur, voilà, l'odeur du bois qui se dégage. C'est vraiment très très spécifique et c'est tout l'art du foudrier. Ça nécessite vraiment un savoir-faire spécifique et particulier que seules quelques personnes de l'atelier peuvent maîtriser et maîtrisent.
Toasting brings out more of the tannic flavors, and customers can specify the level.
Plus on chauffe, plus on va aller sur des notes grillées, toastées, de type café, de type chocolat. Et moins on chauffe, plus on garde le côté frais et plus on est respectueux du profil aromatique d'origine du vin.
The bottom pieces are created by attaching smaller boards with wooden dowels. Strips of wood are also added in between them to make sure it's an airtight, waterproof fit. And a groove is cut along the outside edge so that it will fit securely into the bottom and act as a seal. At this point, any accessories are added, like the tasting tap or special thermometers. Since Foudrerie François customizes its foudres for its clients, each barrel is built to their specifications.
Ici, le client nous a demandé d'intégrer un système de thermorégulation pour maîtriser la température du vin qui sera élevé dans ce foudre. Et donc, il souhaite avoir un thermomètre pour pouvoir vérifier, contrôler cette température qu'on n'a pas sur cette autre foudre parce que le client ne l'a pas souhaité.
Logos of the winery brands are also chiseled into the wood. The containers are finally packaged and shipped to their final destination. Foudrerie François has customers all over the world.
Aujourd'hui, on vend principalement en France, en Espagne, aux États-Unis, en Italie, en Australie, en Afrique du Sud. On vend également au Chili, en Argentine.
Typically, only high-end wineries use French oak barrels, which are more expensive than American oak. They start at about 8,000 euros for a 1,000-liter foudre. A standard 225-liter French oak barrel sells for about 900 euros, and a similar one made of American oak is about half the cost at 470 euros. This ultimately increases the cost of the wine as well. If an installation is outside of France, the price goes up even higher and could be as much as 45,000 euros. While the oak flavor will start to fade over time, the foudres can still be used to ferment for decades.
Malgré tout, les contenants restent dans les caves, ils peuvent rester une génération, c'est-à-dire 30-40 ans.
Each barrel from Foudrerie François is also marked with a small plaque for transparency.
Donc on retrouve notre plaquette qui nous permet d'identifier le plot, l'arbre, la forêt d'origine et sa date de sciage et sa date d'abattage de façon à garantir une traçabilité totale à nos clients tout au long du processus de transformation.
Traceability is important because quality oak trees are a limited resource. They take over 120 years to mature, so the person who planted the seed won't even be alive to see the foudre or taste the wine. It's March in the Loire Valley of central France, and a new batch of logs has just arrived at the Gueux de la sawmill. The company specializes in processing and supplying locally sourced oak to some of the top cooperages in the country, including Foudrerie François.
On achète plutôt dans les bois haut de gamme et ce genre de bois-là représente 6 à 7% maximum de nos achats.
There's an initial quality check upon arrival, one of many in the road to becoming a foudre.
Donc la sélection dépend du diamètre, de la rectitude, de la qualité du bois.
A worker will measure out the desired length and make note of any initial knots or imperfections in the wood, which would cause a leak in the final barrel. The logs are sorted and lifted onto a conveyor, where a machine removes the bark. Each log is then cut into a pile known as a boule, using vertical cuts in the same direction as the fibers. Then they're unstacked and re-examined. The ideal pieces have very straight fibers.
Alors donc cette machine nous permet de dépiler les plateaux un par un pour vérifier la qualité de chacun, voir si cela correspond bien aux attentes de nos clients.
Quality tight-grain wood is a treasured resource for cooperages, so the Office National des Forêts, or ONF, holds auctions for plots of trees every fall. In 2022, 44,000 cubic meters of wood were sold to a variety of cooperages for a record 15 million euros.
Et si jamais l'État estime que la valeur mise dans les enveloppes n'est pas à la hauteur de leur expertise, ils ne sont pas obligés de vendre cette parcelle l'année où ils ont décidé. Les bois ne sont pas coupés.
The boules are placed outside to be air-dried for up to 4 years before they're delivered to a buyer.
Donc ceux-là, c'est des bois de 2 ans de sciage qui commencent à être un petit peu noircis par l'oxydation.
Drying reduces moisture, which can warp the wood, and helps strengthen it for use in a foudre.
Donc le chêne français est quelque chose, est une essence, malgré son volume présent, c'est une essence rare.
Since World War II, the French government has been carefully managing their growth and distribution. It maintains some plots of only the straightest trees with the finest grains, regularly clearing out any weak outliers. The ONF also established a system called mosaic forest to battle the climate crisis. This involves planting a mixture of species to nurture the growth of the more valuable oak trees. These methods seem to be working for now. France's forests have been growing at a rate of 85,000 hectares per year, according to the ONF. But the Ministry of Agriculture released a report in 2023 calling for billions of euros to help combat extreme heat and drought, which it says could eliminate 30% of tree species in France by 2050.
C'est quelque chose qui met très longtemps à pousser et qui est en cours de raréfaction, ne serait-ce que par les surfaces exploitées et par le changement climatique qui fait que beaucoup d'arbres meurent aujourd'hui.